Welcome back to another episode of Hello Ladies, where feminism meets pro wrestling. We are your hosts this evening. I'm Sabrina, and I have a very special guest. Priscilla, here comes the pain!
Hello.
And we're going to be talking a bit about AEW's Grand Slam that happened this past week. I think a lot of people were confused. I was one of them, like, is this a pay-per-view? Where can we view this? So, like, I was in a panic, like, because it got pushed back because of, I think, the NBA, something was going on with that. And yeah, there's a whole thing. Because you were watching it on Max,
Yes.
did you just get to watch it at like 10:30 or whenever it was that it started?
I'm going to be honest, I had to keep turning into Max because I forgot what time it was supposed to start and Reddit was of no help. So by the time I finally found it, it was I saw Jay White on the table and I was like, okay, I gotta rewind. So I'm not exactly sure when it started, but it was late. It very late.
Yeah, yeah, it was and like I was expecting because it was in Australia for like a weird start time, but yeah, they were really bad about putting information out about it, I feel, like easily accessible. Um the only reason I was able to figure it out was I have YouTube TV and I had to go to my scheduled like when it was scheduled to be recorded and I was like, "Okay, here we go." But yeah. I agree with them opening up with Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay versus the Don Callis folk. Um, what did you think of that match overall?
I definitely liked it as an opener because that was definitely a get your butt to the seat match. And I was just excited. And it was also a good move to have Osprey and Omega come out first because, that got me hyped. And especially
Mhm.
Osprey's theme gets you so hyped. Um, and you see, that's the thing. I remember reading on Reddit, like, oh, this is not a pay-per-view, this is just a collision. And I thought, okay, weird, because I thought it was a pay-per-view. And then, Osprey, he's very consistent with his wardrobe, but then Kenny Omega comes out, and I'm like, Kenny Omega is dressed for a pay-per-view. This has to be a pay-per-view. And besides the entrances, which all the entrances were great, and I love the match. On the edge of my seat the entire time. I hate to nitpick, but what really caught my attention was the fact that they got into the ring using a step stool.
Yeah, that was bizarre. Like, I definitely clocked that pretty quickly. I was like, did someone forget to pack those? And they were like, we can just buy some at the store. I feel like Kenny Omega too didn't necessarily know that those were gonna be there because I feel like he looked down and he's like, "What the fuck?" But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, um, it was funny because like I think Kyle Fletcher was the only Aussie that everyone wasn't like, "We gotta fucking win." Um, I think he's the only one that they were like, "Yeah, no." We really like the Canadian and the British guy.
Yeah, I was like, oh, wow. And I just remember thinking, imagine getting booed in your home country. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And there was one part in the match, and it was Kenny Omega and Takeshita where there was a move, and I just remember going because it came real close to not going right, and they cut
Mhm.
like the camera three times, like to three different angles to try and hide it. And I will give it to AEW. Like I think it was a smart thing to do, like cutting those angles because it probably made it look better than it actually was, but I was just like, because I thought Kenny Omega was going to break his neck.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I remember. Because that's the thing about that match. It was like risky move after risky move. And, like that always scares me because I operate on the more risk you take, the more something bad is bound to happen. And that move, I was like, oh God, why did I think that? I've jinxed them. Now it's happened.
It was a scary moment. And like, yeah, I don't want anything to happen to any wrestler, but I was also just like, no, because we got our tickets to go see AEW's pay-per-view in Philly. Is it Revolution? Evolution? Whatever. And I was just like, because I've been like, yes, I'm gonna get to see Kenny Omega wrestle live. And as soon as I was like, no, I don't want him to di like, I've jinxed him. No. Oh, it's just like, why? Why? Nothing else is going right in the world. Why can't I just see him wrestle live? Which we're still on track to do, so. But
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Um, but I think overall that match went really well. Um, I think it was one of the few matches of the night that people liked.
Mm. Yeah, I would say that when it came down to, just looking at the match itself outside of like storylines and, just looking at the action, that was my favorite match just based off pure athleticism.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay are two of the best wrestlers in the world. So,
Hmm.
um, and I think Takeshita, I really like his work. Kyle Fletcher, I like he's obviously like the newest. So,
Hmm.
um, but I still really liked I like Kyle Fletcher as well. Not his hair, but yeah. Moving from that match, we went into Mercedes Moné versus Harley Cameron and eventually her puppet, which I love that puppet. Um, I was really nervous for this match because Mercedes has shown that she needs a really well-seasoned opponent to carry her. Um, and Harley is newer. So I had low expect I think she's been wrestling for like 3, 4 years.
Hmm.
So I had some very low expectations.
Um, I'm going to quote Aretha Franklin here. Beautiful outfits, beautiful outfits.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Um, I think the use of the puppet was great.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I mean, Harley did not perform badly. You could tell though that like she needed a like someone who doesn't need someone to be a ring. There was no ring general in that match.
Hmm. And, I give her credit for, bringing the storyline into the match with like the two puppets. I was
Oh yeah.
shocked to see the second puppet. I was like, all right. Um, so like I do give her a lot of credit because she brought a lot of presence to the match, but if you were to tell me like name a spot or name a sequence in the match that I truly enjoyed, like I said, beautiful outfits.
When she came out from under the ring with the puppet, that is the moment. Like that is the snapshot from that'll be one of the snapshots from that show for forever. Like when people reference it, that's what it'll be. But
Yes.
I think Harley would be great in like a tag team.
Hmm.
They could really pair her with someone who didn't talk so much, so Harley does most of the talking because she's excellent on the mic. She's won people over that way. Like
Hmm.
you can kind of like get over some of her lack of skills elsewhere based on how like funny and endearing she is.
Hmm.
Imagine if Ryback had those skills.
Also imagine if Ryback wasn't a creeper. I don't know if you've watched some of his TikTok lives.
No, I've never watched a TikTok live of that man. Absolutely not.
I did it for science, and he has a tendency to pick, like very, very beautiful women and have like long conversations with them. But then, like, when a guy requests to join him on TikTok Live, it's very business as usual. Like, he's not rude to anybody, but it's one of those things where it's very few and far in between for him to have an at-length conversation with the guy. Versus, I think he was on live either yesterday or today with a woman, and it just went on and on. And I'm like, oh my God, you're never beating the weirdo allegation, sir.
No, no. I mean, also just look at that man. Like, if he approached you, I would immediately grab my mace. Immediately. Um, so the Death Riders versus Jay White and Adam Copeland. This, I feel like, sucked all of the oxygen out of the arena. Like it just absolutely killed the crowd for a bit.
It killed me for a bit because what the hell was that finish?
Yeah, it was specifically the finish that did it. Yeah. And what happened
Hmm.
after the match. I'm glad they didn't end the show with this.
Yeah, and not for nothing. I think the match was doing so well, and I was expecting a more brutal match where, like, I mean, you knew the Death Riders were gonna run in, but as soon as I saw the Death Riders, I thought, FDR is gonna come out, or that other tag team. Oh man, they're like 80s inspired. I forgot their name.
Oh
You
yeah,
know
the
who I mean.
outside, not the outside. Yeah, outsiders, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something like that because they have like the Hulk Hogan hair and whatnot. Those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was expecting all of them to show up and then they didn't. And then I feel like the match kind of ended as
Weird.
soon as yeah, like the Death Riders come out 3 minutes later. Edge is I mean, Adam Copeland is incapacitated.
Mm-hmm. I loved the crowd singing Edge's music in the beginning.
Yes.
I also hate his hair. Like, let it go, man. Let it go.
It's some sort of mullet, I believe.
But it's a weird, like, d baby duck feather texture, it looks like. Like, like baby ducks and that, like, those feathers that they have. That's what it looks like to me. Like he's going to molt.
Well, he always had glorious hair.
Yeah, it's gone now, and he needs to just accept that.
Oh my God.
You know, things change about us as we get older. We need to learn to accept that. And I felt he did when he cut it in WWE, but maybe he feels his hair is where his power in his bones comes from and blames the broken leg on lack of hair.
I feel as though he needs to be Sabretooth in an X-Men movie because they're both Canadian and they both heal very fast.
Yeah, that is true. That's a good point. Yes. Yeah. I mean, Christian has accepted his short hair. Thank God. He looks so like Christian is aging like a fine wine. Edge is aged like milk, but
And I'm liking the patriarchy, Christian. And, this is not a
Mhm.
criticism. It's just that I remember for a while, we got Goofy Christian back in like, I want to say '03 or '04 when he talked about his peeps. And it's like the patriarchy thing works so well. And I wouldn't change it because, again, it just works. But it's like, damn, are we ever going to see Goofy Christian again?
maybe he'll get bonked on the head and he'll go goofy. I mean, it's to the point where like he is so stoic, he is goofy.
Mm.
at times. Um, but yeah, I love what Christian's doing now. I wish he had more screen time, honestly, more mic time specific. Like,
Yeah.
give that man a microphone. And he actually does what Jericho is criticized for, like, or no, he actually, so Christian elevates young talent, Jericho sucks them dry.
Mm.
They're marrow, I would say, if I had to guess. But yeah, Christian actually like elevates, like his faction actually makes sense, which is nice. Because I mean, it could have gone really sideways with the whole like Mother Wayne thing, but
I have been on her IG. I love her.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like every day she is serving and we're all calling her mother. We're like, yes, Mother Wayne.
I like she very clearly it was very smart booking her. It's like very different mother than when like Trent's mother Sue was part of the storylines. Two different kinds of moms, and I like showing that kind of variety.
Yeah.
I think Tony was just like, wow, this audience really likes this woman. Let's roll with it. In both cases.
Yeah, sometimes Tony Khan is, he thinks of great ideas, but sometimes I look at him and I think, what was the rhyme, the reason, the logic?
When was the last time you slept? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he only sleeps on planes at this point.
Mm.
Do you have any other thoughts about that match?
The only thing else I could say is like we already covered the crowd singing to I'm always gonna call him Edge, sorry,
Yeah.
but the crowd singing Adam Copeland, honestly, I feel like that was the best moment of the match, which it's equal parts like it's nice to see Adam Copeland get his flowers, but again, I feel like the Death Riders, I get that they're still building up the story and the momentum. I just feel as though I'm still not truly understanding them. And it's not that John Moxley doesn't look like he could absolutely destroy someone. I'm across the street if I saw John Moxley. I
Hmm.
just cannot believe that John Moxley choked out Adam Copeland that quickly.
Yeah, like the Death Riders did that um interview with Renee, which made things make more sense. Not whenever Moxley was speaking, but like Claudio made things make sense. And I feel like Pac, whatever. Also for his portion made why he's there make sense. Um, but this is something like we should have heard that like when they began, not like, hey, we've been doing this for 3 months and no one knows why. No one's understanding this. Um,
Right.
yeah, and it's just I feel like it's been going too long at this point to for it to still not be clicking with the audience. If every
Yeah.
time at the end of every one of their matches we're all just like that's not the reaction you want. Booing would be good.
Yeah.
Crying would be good. Some sort of emotion, just not like sigh.
Yeah.
Like it always makes me feel, and I'm glad they didn't end the pay-per-view with that, but then like I feel like it screwed over Buddy Matthews and Okada for their match because I was just like, ugh. And it had nothing to do with them. It was just like the
Mm.
tone had been set, and I was like, okay, more wrestling.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was excited for that match. It was just, you're watching Buddy and Okada go at it, and you're still thinking about the previous match, like what the hell happened there?
Yeah, exactly. And like I think every match. Yeah, every single match had someone from Australia or New Zealand in it on the
Yeah.
card, which is great. I appreciate that. Um, and they all made sense to be there. Like no one was really for it. The matches might not have made sense, but then being there made sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, Buddy and Okada, it was solid.
Hmm.
Does anything stick out to me? No.
For that match, I would say I liked that they added some story up, to it with Okada walking away. And I thought that was nice because at first Okada's like, there's no way you could defeat me. But him walking away made me think, oh, Buddy might win this match. Like Okada is figuring out that Buddy's not someone he could easily beat.
Hmm.
And of course, the match went the way it went, but I did like that little glimmer of hope, like, hey, maybe he could do this.
Yeah. It's interesting. Where the Hounds of Hell or something, or Hounds of War that they're called now instead of House of Black, since Malachi is apparently gone. Um, but like weird choice on that one, the woof woof woof. Like I get something for the audience to do, but it's a little too corny for me.
So, since we're on that subject, I'm just gonna go back to Mercedes Monet. I I'm sorry, just when you compare her theme in WWE to the one she has now, it's like what's I
Yeah.
hate it so much.
It's never good when the cheering, like I get when people say CEO. Um, not not that she knew this was coming, but bad timing for
Yeah.
CEO as a gimmick. Like you have to be evil. But having chanting like that, that's like cheering almost in your entrance music is weird. Especially like she had such a good theme in WWE. Like and the dance move, like her move set for like coming out her entrance, the fact that she didn't change that at all is a bizarre choice to me because it doesn't fit with this. And she's just trying to make it fit.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Regina George said, "Stop trying to make fetch happen."
Yeah. 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 That that's the one thing like I feel like right now Triple H is better at when he except with Logan Paul. When he sees something's not working, he'll pivot. Um Tony Khan's not really doing that. He's just like, no, the audience is getting it, right? We get it. We don't want it. Like, we don't like it. Take a nap. Look at this with fresh eyes. Please.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. But I mean, both Buddy and Okada are solid wrestlers. Like, I never doubted that it was going to be a bad. I was so deflated by the match beforehand that I was just like, it's like, time for a refill, I guess.
Yeah, and honestly, I liked the entrances again. Like I felt like they also came dressed for a pay-per-view. To be fair, I feel like everybody that night came dressed for a pay-per-view and this is one thing that's been lighting Reddit aflame for the past 3 to 4 days now is the fact that everybody paid for a pay-per-view. Like I was reading people in both the AEW sub and other pro wrestling subs. Some people spent $1,000 US, like the equivalent of $1,000 US, to travel to this event, to have accommodations for this event, and to be told, well, it's no longer a pay-per-view. And, you know, I don't know how true this is because the video that someone posted was deleted, but I guess Tony Khan had come out and announced to the crowd that, it wasn't a pay-per-view anymore because he originally wanted the Suncorp Stadium, which holds like 50,000 people, but he couldn't fill that up, so he changed it to the Brisbane Entertainment Center, which has a capacity of like 13,000. And allegedly he was explaining to the crowd like, it's the attendance that's why it's not a pay-per-view anymore. And they were booing him during like the ROH taping. And I'm like, if he really did that, that's silly. Again, it's Reddit, so who knows how true that part is. But what a lot of people on Reddit have said is that it was completely awful to try to get their tickets converted from the seating they had at Suncorp over to Brisbane. And just reading people say things like, now I have to Uber and it's too late for me to change my hotel.
Yeah, yeah. I can understand having to like downsize. He shouldn't have shot for such a big arena. Like I think because he thought they were able to fill Wembley, they'd be able to do it in.
Mm.
But England is attached to all of Europe. Australia, they have New Zealand. New Zealand is a small bunch of islands, basically. Like that's not, yeah. I think he misjudged because like it's a long flight from anywhere else. Um, that has I'm sure everyone in AEW is now very aware of. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, and Grand Slams have never been pay-per-views before. Usually they're in New York, and I mean we were at the one at
Hmm.
Arthur Ashe. That was a nightmare, but the show was good.
And that's the thing. I felt like, it was still special. And I think that's where I got confused because I thought like maybe this Grand Slam was a pay-per-view because again, I know it's just Reddit, but like a lot of people on Reddit thought it was a pay-per-view. And it was, I think it was a lot of like, maybe fans just miscommunicating, but I feel as though one thing that I appreciate Triple H for is that if he knows that a rumor is getting out of control, he will shut it down immediately. So there's no misconstruing, no miscommunication. You hear it from Paul Levesque himself that this is a pay-per-view or
Mhm.
it's a Saturday night main event. So there's no confusion. But, and again, I don't really know if Tony Khan is really on social media like he used to be, but if he were to just take a look at what people are saying about Grand Slam, he would know that there's a lot of people who want him to be more consistent about, when are events happening? Is this a
Yeah.
collision? Is this a special event? Is it a pay-per-view? Pick a location, stick to it. Also, a lot of people are complaining that they would love to see AEW in person, but by the time they know AEW is in their city, they have like 2 to 3 weeks to buy tickets.
Yep. Yeah. And I know they haven't put out any of their dates really past April except for like the pay-per-views. And it's just like April's not that far away. We are at the end of February basically. Like especially someone who might want like good ticket like people in this economy, people need to be able to plan these things,
Yeah.
especially if they're like traveling.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, if you book a hotel 2 months in advance, you'll get a deal. But if you're like, hey, I'm going to be there next week.
They're like, we have a room with a toilet in it if you want it. The toilet's in the same room and it's haunted. The toilet, not the room.
It's a toilet.
Yeah. We refuse to explain what that means. And then of course we had the main event, which I mean, everyone, that's what people were tuning in for. Mariah May versus Timeless Tony Storm, and how they had that her entrance, marvelous. Sensational.
Yes. Um, 10 out of 10 in my opinion.
Mhm.
Love the outfits, love the entrances, love the action, love the storytelling. There was absolutely nothing about that match that made me angry or perturbed in any way.
Yeah. And it was such like when Tony won the belt back and she was just crying on the mat. I felt like we were seeing like Tony Storm herself in that moment, and it was just beautiful, like well deserved. She's a top star not only in that company but in wrestling right now, and I don't think people talk about that enough. Like amazing. And she's keeping this character fresh.
Yeah. Um, I also give props to Mariah May because one thing that I liked about her turning on Tony Storm was that, like, you knew it was coming, but it wasn't drawn out. Like, and this is no shade to Shawn Michaels, but it wasn't like, I'm just going to walk a little bit away from you. That way you're in good kicking range. So it's like when you watch Shawn turn on Marty Jannetty, you can kind of see where Marty should have known the kick was coming, but like, when Mariah smashed Tony on the top of her head, like I felt like I had whiplash. There was no pause, there was no buildup. It was just
Mhm.
vicious.
Yep. Yeah. And it sucks. Like, I feel bad for Mariah because it was very much so giving like Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley vibes as like we know you're just a placeholder until Tony gets us back. Because they didn't she suddenly was treated like a 2011 diva. Like
Mm.
that's how the booking went all of a sudden with her. And it's just like, no, 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 no. Nobody wants this. Like, nobody wants this. Please reverse course. Like, Mariah May can actually wrestle. She's great on the mic. Like, she is a total package, and you are reducing her and her title range. Please stop.
To be honest, I would have liked to see her reign go on longer. Like, I know it was perfect. She won in England and lost in Australia, but 5 months isn't bad. I think what it was is that in the interim, I don't, and maybe this is what you're referring to, I don't think she had a significant feud. It was like, let's just throw a challenger at her so she could win, so we could say she won as champion.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. There was nothing there. Yeah. She will be noted in like that title reign will just be noted as like people will remember it for Tony Storm, not for her, which is
Mm.
shitty because she could have really gone on a tear. But
You're absolutely right, because when I even think about it, like how I felt, you know, just watching clips on YouTube because, AEW wasn't on Max yet. I just remember thinking like, oh, I can't wait for Tony Storm to come back. And, that's exactly the perfect way to explain it. It was like Tony Storm was the main character. Tony Storm was Batman and Mariah May was Joker.
mhm.
And her whole purpose was just to be there for Tony Storm to eventually beat her.
Yeah, yeah. I am looking forward. I'm curious as to see what'll be up next for Tony. I think it's a really good chance to like elevate some other talent, but
Mm.
I'm very curious what do you have any guesses at who will be revving up?
To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Tony Khan said, you know what, Mercedes Moné wants her fifth belt.
I don't see him going that route yet.
Mm.
Because I think Tony would actually beat Mercedes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want Mercedes anywhere near Tony Storm. I want Willow to take that belt off of Mercedes. So bad though. I want Willow with the
I
belt.
like that. You see, part of me is wondering also what are they going to do with Mariah May? Because part of me is thinking, maybe Mariah May will go after Mercedes because,
Hmm.
she just lost the championship. Mercedes has four.
I could see that, like her like interrupting like Mariah May's next like promo and just being like, "Well, you're a loser," like da, da, da. And yeah. And I could see Mariah May taking one of those belts. Like I think that would be good.
And I'm going to be honest, like I love the whole face versus heel thing, but seeing two heels go at it, that's refreshing.
Yeah, and it's not that I kind of think Mariah May was better as a face, but it was because
Mm.
they wrote better for her that way. I think she could do a good tweener,
Mm.
but yeah. Because I mean, if she beats Mercedes Moné, I think she's instantly going to be a face in my book.
Oh my goodness, it's the fact that like they keep calling her Mercedes Hogan and, and it's so bad.
Yeah. Anyone being called anything to do with Hogan. Did you happen to catch even Undertaker basically who still toes the company line talk shit about Hogan and was just like, yeah, he got what he deserved. Sometimes people get what they deserve when he got booed out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the fact that like I haven't found a wrestler interview where they praise Hulk Hogan. And it's funny because when you watch the one Vince McMahon documentary and Kevin Nash goes over, who were they going to have to lead the NWO, and he throws some serious shade by saying Ric Flair is the best wrestler in the world, but Hulk Hogan's popular.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember the only person that I can think of that has said nice things about Hulk Hogan within the past, through other than like, yeah, he led a generation,
Hmm.
um, is Vince McMahon.
Oh, well.
That's it. And it was in that documentary. Like, it's just like, we get it. You two were lovers. We know. Like, it's obvious.
Yeah, like those two, the definition of besties right there.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. Like they're gonna they're gonna go down together and on each
Mhm.
other. You know? That's I, yeah. Yeah. Ugh. Hulk Hogan's such trash. I hate that man. Like when he dies, it'll be like, wasn't it when Rush Limbaugh died and everyone was like, good.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna happen. Everyone's gonna go, yep, here for that. Should have died before you
Yeah.
ruined your legacy.
Well, that's the thing. One of the first things that alerted me that he was a piece of trash is like, it was years ago. It was something like his son crashed up the vehicle, but the friend was severely injured.
Died.
Yeah, and it's like, how do you make comments saying, well, that person must have done something for God to have punished them? It's like, no, that wasn't God. Your son was the punisher in that case, driving like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is why his ass wound up in jail. Like,
Mm,
dear Lord. It's like maybe if you had been a decent parent. No wonder
mm.
his daughter is just like, I don't know that man.
Yeah, that Instagram post broke my heart because I get it when you're like, yep, that's my father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He contributed half of my DNA, all right. He did that. Like, ugh, yeah. Hulk Hogan ruins everything.
Yeah, and it's funny because I used to love the show Hogan Knows Best, and
Hmm.
he came off as the hero in that show too. Like he was like, everything I do is for Linda and the kids. And then I
His
just
cheating
remember
scandal
like,
happened.
yeah, I was like, wait a minute, like just last night on TV, like,
I think like what a rough realization that like, oh yeah, reality TV is not based in reality
right?
at all. Yeah, God, I at least watching like Miz and Maurice, for example, like some of those things are staged and they're very like tongue-in-cheek, clearly done. Like there's some real stuff in there too, but it's done like it's so entertaining because
Yeah.
Miz is hilarious. As is Maurice. Like I love them, but yeah. Mm.
That's how I felt about Total Divas because even though I wasn't okay, so like that time period where I didn't watch wrestling, I was still reading wrestling news and
Mm.
I just fell in love with Total Divas. There was something
Yeah.
about it that was just captivating and I just loved all the drama.
And it killed me. Like I remember watching it, and there was this, I think it was like the first season where Nikki Bella is walking down this pier to meet John Cena because they just had a big fight and da 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 da. And I was like, this would not happen in real life. I don't care how much money you have. This is like so The Bachelor, come get your rose. Like it was ridiculous. Um, and some of the things though, I do wonder, like, either John Cena was really okay with being portrayed as like a shitty boyfriend,
Mhm.
or he's like, yeah, no, I really am very strict about my house. And no, you can't make dinner here. And no, like, you have to dress for like, and I don't know which way. I don't know which one. It's not like we're gonna find out either because he doesn't talk about that.
I still rewatch those clips because
Mhm.
it was his face and he was like, "Oh, so you're gonna do this more than once?"
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, because that clip, like, we probably have the same algorithm because it just offered it up to me like this week. And I was just like, oh man, this is awful. And she's not even making a mess.
Right?
Like, as someone who is in the process right now of making bread, cooking makes a mess. Like, baking makes a
Yes.
mess. It does. Um, and you just clean it up. And the other crazy thing is they're acting like he doesn't have staff that like would clean up after them
Right.
or make dinner in that. And like that was probably the thing. He's probably like, I don't want the staff shown because that makes me like seem unapproachable or like unrelatable.
Honestly, like Nikki Bella and John Cena, like I that was like number one for me because I was like it was like watching a less toxic version of the Jersey Shore.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I loved everything with like Natty and like because she would just go for some of those angles. Like her and TJ where she did the dominatrix thing, but then that wound up being part of her gear, like her
Yep.
gear change with that. Or when Summer Rae broke her nose.
Oh my God.
Like you got a nose job. It was a nice way to cover it, I guess. Like, yeah.
That show is why I became obsessed with Summer Rae because like if there was drama, somehow she was involved.
Hmm. That show gave like a second wind to Jim Neidhart's career, which I think is great, 'cause especially since like it was towards the end of his life and like he got to leave the world with like people loving him again. Like,
Yeah.
like the wrestling world being like really on his side and like all these people coming up to him. And I think he had done an interview where he's like, I love it when people tell me how much they love Natty and like how great she
Oh,
is. And I was just like, I love proud dad moments.
that is so cute.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. have a lot of problems with Ric Flair, obviously. But I love when he talks about Charlotte and how he said in an interview, oh, at some point, like, um, you know, I'm okay with not being Ric Flair and just being Charlotte Flair's dad. Like when someone says that, like, and I don't know if he's really okay with that, but I think part of him is just like excited, like that. I think there's two parts of him that fight there. Did you watch? He just had a documentary come up about him on that he was a part of. And holy shit, his son,
David?
Reese? No,
Oh, Rio.
he looked exactly like his dad, like when he was young, like spot on. Charlotte and Reese both looked exactly like him. His other two kids, like a little bit, but it was like copy paste with those two.
And that's the one who unfortunately passed away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
God.
overdose. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, but yeah. I was just like, holy shit. I was like, no wonder he liked part of me was like, I bet he liked them more. Or I shouldn't say liked them more. He had more time, like, because he was an older dad at that point, so he had more time to spend with them. But they also look a lot more like him. I'm like, that probably also encouraged that. Like,
Mm.
I'm saying
Yeah.
he's a little bit of an egomaniac.
I'm gonna watch it. That was my grandfather's favorite wrestler right there.
Yeah. He's problematic, but like, woo.
You remember when the WWE spoofed his like DUI case or whatever? I'm sorry, that was funny to me.
My God, yeah. They WWE did a lot of when they were WWF did a lot of stuff.
You know, I'm gonna be that person to say like half of the unhinged crap that Vince McMahon said, like, yeah, we're gonna go out there and do it, damn it. Some of it I found it funny. I'm sorry, but like okay, so Katie Vick, not funny. I was just like, what is happening here? But like
Kicking the baby
there was
into
a lot of
the crowd,
yeah, okay, like I'm gonna say this. I know like I'm supposed to be offended by do-rag Vince McMahon. That was hilarious to me.
oh my God. So that man, that man. Even just thinking back like the Kiss My Ass Club,
Bizarre.
if Hogan was in that company, I tell you his face would be right in there
Yeah.
at that time, yeah. Like what a that's one of the reasons like no wrestling fan was shocked when any allegation came out against Vince McMahon. We were all like, yeah,
Yep.
there's more. Do you want to hear it? Like anytime my coworkers or something would be like, did you see him? Like, yeah. Were you surprised? You're like, you don't sound shocked. I'm like, no. I watched the product when he controlled it, one, and two, like, he heard things for so long. But yeah. I mean, the stuff he did with Trish and making her crawl around the ring, barking.
Yeah.
Vince has had like a thing too with dog food, like Roman Reigns when he was tied up in the ring and having like the dog food dumped over Roman. Remember when Shane had his nuts hooked up to the car battery?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of things, a lot of things. Stephanie McMahon was crucified and offered up. Yeah.
As a scared little girl in Catholic school, I was like, what?
Yeah. If my mother had seen that part, I don't think she definitely wouldn't have let me watch. She did have a crush on Undertaker though when he was the American Badass.
Okay.
And I was just like, really? Okay, mom. So that was his target audience, my mother.
Yeah. To me, that's more acceptable than when he was like the cult leader, like Charles Manson type of Undertaker.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just don't think he's a pretty man, so I don't get it. I just don't.
Yeah.
Give me an Orange Cassidy, a Damian Priest, sure. I guess like, Damian Priest, a more modernized version of The Undertaker. He's like hot Undertaker or bisexual Undertaker. Even though
Yeah.
I love that he doesn't like that he didn't get it for so long why people said that. It's just like, look at that gear, man. Look at that gear and the makeup.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. I like both of those things, so but
Yeah, I'm just, I gotta support Damian Priest. Bronx people gotta stick together.
mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Beautiful man. Yeah, if he's in the parade this year, maybe I'll scoot up to New York to crash. Just be like, oh,
It's a
hello.
fun time. Yeah.
Eat a little snack while looking at a snack.
Right.
Hmm. Snack in the bank.
Remember that nickname.
Hmm. I was very proud of that name.
Oh my goodness, it's almost been a year since we went to WrestleMania.
Yeah, it has. Definitely. Thank God too, like that we went when we did, one because that was an amazing WrestleMania, but also like tickets now apparently are insane. So, because all the scalpers jumped on.
Ugh. Yeah, and that's why I'm like paranoid about SummerSlam because it's like I would really love to go. It's only in New Jersey, but
Yeah.
like the scalpers are already like, oh, here's a $2,000 seat. It's like I'll just bust up in there at this point.
Yeah, you got to do the pre-sales in order to like get a ticket these days.
Yeah.
But
Like
any other final thoughts on Grand Slam or anything?
honestly, I am so glad that Tony Khan gave the main event to Tony Storm and Mariah May.
Mm,
Um, one thing I will give him is that a lot of things with their women's division, I feel as though it's moving in the right direction. I like that, they always had a mid-card belt. If more women join, maybe we'll even get tag belts, but for AEW, I support all women, but like AEW's women's division, no complaints.
yeah, and I think like I'm glad he recognized that that match should be going on last. Um, but that has been the best storyline going in AEW for a long
Yes.
time, and I'm glad that he let go of the Death Riders on this one because
Yes.
fuck that. Like, I think the Aussies would have just burned the state out. Like, just like, nope, arena's gone now. This is all your fault, dude. All your fault.
And love Tony Storm, love that she won again.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So, time for the sign off.
Yeah.
Um, in the name of our Lord and Savior, Willow Nightingale,
Yep.
the babe with the power, power of voodoo, hoodoo, you do, nothing matters, and smile anyway.